Women are capable of doing whatever they put their minds to. We all need to help and support each other. Every person needs to be respected for who they are. These are a few things Alexandra learned from her mother. In this episode, we talk about her relationship with her mother, what did she learn from her, and what did she pass along to her own two boys. We also talk about women empowerment and women supporting women, and what do these actually mean to us personally. Alexandra Robison is an English communication coach, an entrepreneur, a teacher, and a believer in the power of women. As a woman entrepreneur, she knows how essential good communication is to the viability of any business. In 2020, she started her own business helping other women entrepreneurs, empowering them to confidently tell their stories in English, showing their intelligence, creativity, and true personality. Alexandra was born in Halifax, Canada, is married, and now lives with her husband in Ottawa. They have 2 sons. My name is Tina de Keyzer. Welcome to the Women's Table. Today with me, having a seat at the table, is Alexandra Robison. Alexandra, welcome. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this.
Okay, me too. As you might know, the Women's Table podcast is all about, my mission is to inspire and empower women all around the world. And we talked before, and you told me about this inspiring woman in your life. I think it was your mom.
Yes, my mom.
Yeah, please tell us some more about this inspiring woman.
So my mother was a mathematician. Yeah, she studied in the 1950s, which is when women really didn't study math. And I can remember her telling me probably many times, that when she was trying to decide, what she would study in university, the counselors at school were saying, women don't study math. If you're good at math and science, you should be a nurse. So despite what she had been told, she went on and studied math. And she worked as a research scientist for Canada's Department of Defense. And what her research was, she was mapping the ocean floor just off the east coast of Canada. That was my mother.
Yeah.
Nutshell.
Okay. So thank you. So what was your youth like? Because do you have some brothers and sisters?
I do. I am one of 4 kids.
Okay, so we're talking about the 50s, the 60s. This was a completely different time. So what was it like for your father to have his wife being a scientist, a researcher?
I think at times it was probably tough. My father was a bit of an intellect too. He was an engineer. He was an officer in the Canadian Navy. He could spar with my mom on an equal level. But he also grew up on a family farm in New Brunswick, which is the east coast of Canada. And so he was used to women who worked right alongside the men. So for him, this was just what women did, is they worked. So it wasn't anything unusual for him to have a woman who had her own ideas and did her own thing, thankfully.
Yeah.
I have to say, for us as the kids, I think our family was quite different from my...
Different how?
Because my parents both were intellects. And so they expected us to operate on that level too. So I know, I would go to my friend's house for dinner and their families would sit around and they'd talk about school. They'd talk about, whatever activities they were involved in. That's what dinner discussion was about. But in my family, and my friends didn't like to come visit and have dinner with my family because we sat around the dinner table and we discussed current events and we debated and argued what was happening in the world. And my father in particular, he expected us to not only, read and understand what was happening in the world, but have an opinion about it. And so once he had an idea of what our opinion was, he would intentionally take the opposite side and he would argue with us and debate. It could get quite heated in some of these arguments as we were discussing what was going on. I have 1 brother and 2 sisters, and my brother and I could get quite involved in these arguments, and we still do today. But my 2 sisters, they would take part, but they would choose to pull back a little bit when we'd get going.
Yeah. So how old were you kids when your parents expected you to have an opinion about matters in the world?
I honestly don't remember a time when they didn't. Like when we were little, I mean, obviously, we weren't reading the newspaper when we were 4 years old, but they expected us to think. So if we were asked a question, they didn't want just, like a yes or no. They wanted us to have our own opinions. I think ultimately what their goal was is they wanted their children to think for themselves.
Yeah, that's great. Your mom is not with us anymore?
No, she died a little bit over 2 years ago.
Okay. What do you think were the prejudices and bias back in the days when your mom was a scientist for women?
They're huge. Yeah. So as I said, my mom worked as a research scientist, and she was the first woman to actually hold this position in the Department of Defense, like in where she worked. A big part of her job was that she needed to do research. The research happened on ships.
Yeah.
So the first time, after she'd been hired that she needed to go out and do research, she started to prepare, but she was told no, that as a woman, she couldn't go out onto the ship because all of the other people on the ship were men. All of the other scientists were men, and and I guess even people operating the ship were men. Yeah. And they didn't think that this was appropriate for a woman to be out there with all of these men. Okay. And I can remember my mom talking to us about this and laughing, thinking, like, what did she think was going to happen out there? Like, we were all pretty busy, and most of them were married men, and she was married. And yeah, she thought this was quite preposterous, really.
Yeah.
That she be told this. So she didn't take it lying down. She fought back and, explained, this is my research. I can't expect somebody else, even if she were to train somebody else to do the research, it wouldn't be the same as her going out and doing the research herself. Like, she wouldn't have the same understanding of the data. Finally, after, I don't know exactly how long, but I know it took quite a long time, she did get permission to go do her own research.
Okay.
But in order to do this, she had to take another woman with her.
Oh my.
So that she wasn't the only woman on the ship. And she said she looked around and thought, what woman do I pick? Because all of the other women were secretaries. So she brought along a secretary. So she had her own secretary with her.
Oh my.
So yeah, things have changed quite a bit since then.
Okay. So what is the most important thing you learned from your mother when it comes to the position of women?
I was thinking about this, figuring that you would ask me this question. And I think that there are actually 3 things that I would say that my mother taught me. I'm sure there are a lot more than 3 things, but in terms of this subject, I think the first thing is that, she led by example and taught me that women are capable of doing whatever they put their minds to.
Okay.
So even back in school, she was being told, women aren't supposed to be good at math and science, and, you're not supposed to study math. She's like, well, but that's what I'm good at. That's what I love. So that's what I will do. Yeah. So I think that's one of the big things is know what you're good at, follow your passions, and believe in yourself. So this is what you're good at. Do it. Yeah. The second thing I would say that she taught me is that women need to, well, all people, I guess, need to be prepared to advocate for themselves. Yeah. Just like in the story that I just told you, she could have just said, okay, yeah, I'll train somebody else and let them go do my research. It saves me having to leave my kids at home. And, I'm sure it would have been a lot simpler for her. Yeah. Would have been a lot simpler for my dad. Yeah. She didn't. And she advocated for herself. And my understanding is she fought quite hard to be allowed to do her job, really. So that was something we always knew
Yeah.
growing up, is that she was willing to stand up and say, you know what, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
I need this to change.
Yeah.
The third thing that I learned from my mother is that we all need to help and support each other.
Yeah.
So even though my mom, as I said, she was very much an intellect, she was a very caring person too.
Mm-hmm.
And an example of this is I can remember I was probably my early teens, and my mom led a group in our church, and they at the time, it was when the Vietnamese were fleeing,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of refugees, and so she and this group within our church sponsored a family. It was a large family. Like, it was the parents and 4 or 5 kids, one of
Yeah.
whom was married and had his own child. Yeah, so they sponsored them, and my mom was very involved in helping them find housing and, education for the kids and jobs and language tutoring if they needed it.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the one who was really involved with this family, meeting with them. And I have this very clear memory of my mother. It was their first Easter here in Canada. And my mother decided that she would take an Easter basket to the family,
Yeah.
to help them, not because they celebrated Easter, and she wasn't trying to, make them celebrate a Christian holiday, but she
Yeah.
wanted them to just feel like they were part of Canadian society. So
Yeah.
she took them this basket, but they had no idea what she was bringing them and why. And so she was trying to explain the Easter bunny to
Oh
them.
my. Yeah.
And I have this very clear image of my mother hopping down the sidewalk with her hands over her head like bunny ears, trying to show them a bunny. And, and she had the basket in her hand.
Oh my.
Yeah. So that's the other lesson that I learned from my mother, is about caring for others and helping them when they're in need. Yeah. And just being supportive.
Yeah. And also, she was very much for inclusion as well, because
Yes.
of the story you just told me. She wanted this family to feel part of the Canadian community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that was, a fundamental belief of hers, was that, every person needs to be respected for who they are, and we all have our strengths, our weaknesses, and just accept that and,
Yeah.
and help people work to their strengths and help them feel, that power of their own strengths.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. When I think of my mom, my mom is still around, but she has severe dementia. But the thing she taught my sister and me was finish school, get your college degree, get a job, and make sure you will never, never, ever, ever, ever be financially depending on a husband or a man or a boyfriend or partner, whatever. There are always things that your mother tells you that sticks with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mothers are, like that foundation that we all grow from.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have kids yourself, right?
I do. I have 3 boys.
You have 3 boys.
I do.
Okay. So what do you teach your boys? What did you teach your boys about treating a woman?
Good question. I would say, they grew up, with me, with my mother, and they knew all of the stories about my mother as well. And even my mother's mother. So their great grandmother was very strong, independent woman as well. So they were surrounded by strong women.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel that I needed to, be intentionally telling them, you need to treat women as an equal. I felt that it was better to just show them that this is how, what women are capable of doing. That, to me, I think it was about just showing them that all people are equal. whether they're men, women, whatever race, whatever intellectual ability, all of that. Like, just respect people for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they saw that all around them in terms of their family.
Yeah. Because I always mention this in every episode, that if we women want to accomplish things, we need the men as well. And I think that when we need the men, it all starts with nurture. How do you raise your kids? Parenting. I think that it is really important that men are actually, just like you said, are being taught or being shown that it is very important that you treat everyone equally, on an equal basis.
You're just making me think. I do remember when the Me Too movement started, and my boys were all, well, at least the older two were teenagers at that point. And I do remember having a number of discussions with them at that point, because I felt that they were old enough, to really have full discussions about what they thought, what I thought, and that we could have a discussion at that point, like me as a woman and them as young men, and discuss each perspective. And a lot of that discussion was that we need to just remember that you have to respect everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. Everyone deserves respect, whether they work for you, whether you work for them, whether you go to school with them, whatever. Everybody just deserves to be respected. Yeah. And I remember explaining to them that I felt that's what I hoped came out of the Me Too movement.
Yeah. And what was their response?
In agreement, because that foundation had been already laid.
Yeah.
So very definitely, they were in agreement over that. I know they did have discussions with me that they were concerned about that movement going too far, in a way that, just like you hear about with feminists, that some feminists, are called men haters and things. Yeah. They wanted to make sure that it didn't go too far, that because it was so much in the media at the time, they were a little bit worried that it would lead, some young women to think, just all men are out to not respect women. Yeah. So they did have some concern about that.
Yeah. The last episode is in Dutch. I talked to Rose, is her name. She's all concerned about catcalling. And she is making a strong case against catcalling, sexual intimidation on the street harassment, and so on. Then I told her, maybe if we ask those men who do those things, the perpetrators, the men who make themselves guilty of catcalling, harassing women on the street, maybe we should ask them, okay, you do this, but what if it were your mom? What if it were your wife? What if it were your sister? Maybe they can relate a bit because it's close to home. And she said, no, I don't agree with you. And I was like, why not? I thought it was a valid argument.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. And she said, no, because I don't want them to think of this, their wife, their spouse, their sister, their mother. I want them to look at me as a person. I am a person. I am a woman, and I deserve respect. It doesn't matter if the woman who gets harassed is your sister or your mother or your wife. You just don't get to do this sort of stuff. And I was like, well, she's got a point.
She does. I think, very interesting point, because by saying, think, what would this be like if it were your mother or your sister? You're saying that they're more important than
any other girl,
another person on the street. And in terms of to me, it's about empathy.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a skill that we just all need to have, and that I hope I believe as a parent that is a skill that I taught my kids. I mean, that's fundamentally what we're talking about in terms of feminism and equal rights for women. It's empathy and understanding that everybody deserves respect.
Yeah, those were her exact words as well. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. A little bit about Alexandra. You are a business communication coach and you focus on empowering women. So, why women? Why do you focus on women? And what does women empowerment mean to you?
Let me break that down into two parts, I think.
Okay.
The why do I only work with women?
Yeah.
To start, I'll tell you a little bit about my background.
Please do.
When my children were young, I had a different business. It was working in the antique boat industry, which is a very male-dominated industry.
Okay.
It's kind of like men in their cars and men in their boats.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I really had to be willing to put myself out there and stand up for myself and feel strong and independent. I was on the board of directors for a nonprofit education. It wasn't a school, but it helped teens who were struggling in school. Yeah, again, it was just reinforcing that in order to represent a business, you need to be strong.
Yeah.
That it takes strength and determination to put yourself out there every single day, representing your business. And when it's your own business, like that's your own livelihood. And it goes beyond that, like your own business becomes sort of part of your own personality, that it's your baby. Yeah. And so you really need to be ready to stand up and represent it. And women, things have come a long way. It is not like it was when my mom in the 50s was saying she wanted to become a mathematician. And I understand that, but it's still not equal for women in the business world. I know my husband, when he first saw this statistic, he's just horrified. In Canada, women business owners only get about 4% of the venture capital that is out there. And that's pretty common around the globe. Like Canada is no different than the US or many European countries in terms of that.
I think it's 2% in the Netherlands.
Yeah, like it's always really, really low.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And yeah, that just shows you that even though, things have come a long way, we're not there yet.
No.
In terms of why women, it's because I know that women, even though things have come a long way, we still need to help each other.
Yeah.
The next part of your question is, what does women empowerment mean to me? And, so that they're all tied together. But to me, women empowerment is women helping and supporting each other. It's that simple. Because nobody else knows what it's like to be a woman, except another woman. And so even though I know that there are many men who are completely supportive of women's rights and, believe in equality for all, they don't know what it's like to be a woman.
No.
And that's what women empowerment is to me. Like it's just women helping and supporting each other. As I was putting together my business plan, I knew that I wanted to be helping women. I'm sure, a lot of it came back to the lessons I learned from my mother. And, you need to help each other and you need to be willing to stand up for yourself. So I think it's all, kind of tied in with that. And I don't know, did I answer that question or not?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just in general, why do you think it's important that women support each other, not that women support other women?
Because just as I said, that nobody else knows what it's like to be a woman, especially in the business world, that women so often, the opportunity is there for women now, but the treatment isn't equal is, I think, the difference. If you have a really strong, independent woman, often they're they're criticized for being too much like a man or being, too strong, or if they show, their more empathic side, or then they're considered weak and too feminine and too emotional. And so it's this difficult situation. And so I really feel that women need to support each other because nobody else knows what it's like to be in that situation.
But there are women out there who don't support other women. I remember Madeleine Albright, this famous quote of the late Mrs. Albright. She said, "There is a special place in hell for women who don't support other women." Have you heard of this quote? And what do you think of it?
I have. And as much as I respect Madeleine Albright for what she accomplished, I think she's wrong.
Okay. Why?
I think that's judgmental. To say a woman not supporting other women should go to hell. Who am I to judge somebody else for that? I don't know what her life experience is. Maybe she doesn't have the background or the strength to be able to do that. Maybe she's fighting her own difficulties and doesn't feel like she can take on fighting somebody else's problems. So I believe, we talked about empathy before, and I think a statement like that really lacks empathy.
Yeah. It's a beautiful answer. Thank you. Getting back to you, your profile on LinkedIn says that you are a business English communication coach, English mentoring program for female founders, empowering women to tell their stories with confidence and grow their business globally. So another 2 questions. So what is the content of your program? Can you share with us what your program is about? And second question is, how do you empower women to tell their stories?
In terms of my program, I'll start there.
Yeah.
As you said, it's a 10-week program. So as an English communication coach, I'm not trying to be a general English teacher to, teaching the basic grammar skills. The women that I work with have already spent the time working on that. They're at a fairly advanced level of English at this point, where they're trying to represent their business in English. I'm trying to help them refine their skills. My program, I've got 3 pillars to it. The first thing that I do, which is quite unique as an English coach or English teacher, is that I work on mindset.
Okay.
Because it's quite common for language learners to suffer from imposter syndrome. Language is so connected with culture.
Yeah.
And so when you are speaking in another language, not your native language, it's very easy to feel like an imposter. Even though you may have great English skills, you still don't feel like yourself.
Yeah.
To me, it's important to start by just talking about this. I give my students a little quiz to do to just have an idea of their level of imposter syndrome. Maybe they're doing really great and suffer very little, but maybe they really do need to work on this. And I think it's empowering to them to know where they stand in terms of that and just have a discussion about this. So that's where we start, is let's make sure that we've got the right mindset. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that we do is we focus on a few key skills. So before we start the program, we have a discussion about, what they've done in the past with their English education, where they feel their strengths are, their weaknesses. What I then focus on for my course is their weaknesses. Like you've already put in the work, you've got these strengths, well done.
Yeah.
So let's move forward from there. And we'll spend a few weeks just focusing on the areas that they really feel that they are struggling. So we'll spend, depending on the student, 3 or 4 weeks working on those things. And then the last pillar is where we're really trying to just, build from having the basic skills of English and work on communication. And I'm sure, like as an entrepreneur, you're representing your business. And so you need to feel strong but you also need to stand out from the crowd. That's what you're doing as an entrepreneur is distinguishing yourself from everybody else. And you need to do that, not just, with your website, but all of your communication.
Yeah.
And so we spend another few weeks focusing just on this. So we talk about gender differences in communication, because there are some differences, and having an awareness of that helps you, whether you're working with other women or other men, it just helps you have an understanding, to be able to read the people that you're either pitching to or teaching or whatever. So we talk about that. We talk about nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Because that's an often forgotten part of language. And it's super important, how you, like, it's not just how you stand in front of a crowd, but it's the subtle little differences of what you do and how you move. And we talk about the cultural differences in nonverbal communication, because there are big differences around the world, like even in terms of how close you stand to another person can, make somebody feel that they like you and trust you, or make them feel completely intimidated by you.
Yeah.
And we also talk about storytelling, and we'll spend a couple of weeks focusing specifically on storytelling, because storytelling is where you bring emotion into your communication. And that's really what you need to do as an entrepreneur. Is you need to build trust, and you need to work on emotion and make people trust you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we do in 10 weeks. I know I get asked, like, 10 weeks, that's not enough time to learn a whole language. Well, I'm not trying to teach you the whole language. I know you've put in the work already.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on the things that will help you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. Okay. And this is how you empower women to tell their stories, by using storytelling in your program?
By using storytelling, by working on their mindset, by making sure that they understand some of the differences that are happening in between men and women in communication.
When they finish the program, what is it that they can achieve with your program?
A feeling of confidence.
Okay.
Yeah, feeling that they're prepared to stand up, in front of, whether it's, a potential, you're trying to get venture capital, whether you're trying to make a sale, whatever, feeling the confidence to stand up there in not their own language and represent their business, and feel as though they are still the strong, capable woman that they know they are. I know like I see this on social media. As I mentioned, I've had this discussion sort of with my own sons. I think it's important that people as a whole understand that when women say they want to empower other women, or that they're feminists, or, however they put it out there, it's not about hating men or thinking that women are weak and need help, or women are stronger than men. It's not about that. It's just, as I said, it's about nobody else can understand what it's like to be a woman in the business world. And I think we are much stronger together than we are separate.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you. Well, for me, women empowerment and feminism means that women have the free choice to do whatever the hell it is they want to do.
Exactly.
If they want to stay home, look after their kids, well, they want to be a stay-at-home mom, it's fine with me. If they want to become a CEO, work 80 hours a week, have a nanny look at after their kids, is also fine with me. No judgment here, as long as it is their own free choice. And I think that we all, women, also need to, and that is what women supporting women means to me, that we need to respect choices other women make, even if we ourselves would not make the same choices.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's it. That is it 100%, because everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and everybody has their own background.
Yeah.
Not everybody had my mother who was standing up there and saying,
Yeah.
women, yes, we can do it. And so we don't know what another woman's experience is. We don't know what brings somebody else joy. Only she knows that.
Yes.
And so who am I to say, really, like, I think you should be doing something different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It makes me think, when I remember when my kids were young, there's like all this competition among parents.
Yeah.
And like, why?
Yeah.
We're all just there trying to do the best for our kids. Why should we be competing and saying, oh, like, I did it this way, you need to do it too?
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I absolutely believe in feminism and women empowerment, but to me, it goes far beyond that. It's just about respecting people, whoever they are, wherever they come from. Everybody deserves to be respected for who they are.
Yeah. I think that's the root of everything. Because if you don't have respect, there's nothing there. If you don't have respect for anyone, because I think that nowadays, people want to have respect, people feel you owe them respect, but they don't want to give it to someone else. At least that's my experience with some people.
Yeah, I think we've all come across people like that. Yeah, and that's just not the way that I think.
Yeah.
And I do think that that is something that I learned from my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, like I described, that even at a young age, my parents were asking us our opinion about what was happening in the world. Like, it wasn't, oh, you're too little to understand this or have an opinion about it. It's like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And so that's just the way I grew up, is that everybody has an opinion. Yeah. Everybody has their own thoughts and experiences, and we need to respect that.
Yeah.
And even the story I told you about my mother helping this Vietnamese family, and that's the same idea, is that they had like a horrific experience and we could help them. Yeah. So that's what we should do.
Yeah.
And that they deserved to be helped and to be respected for what they had been through.
Yeah. I think it's quite unique and exceptional that your parents raised you and your siblings this way, because I think, especially during those times, wasn't it like, well, you're the kid, I'm the parent, I know best, mom knows best, dad knows best. So I think it's quite remarkable that your parents were like, okay, so what do you think of this? What is your opinion? I think it's quite remarkable.
I think it is too. I feel very lucky to have had parents who respected their children.
Yeah.
Because I think that's ultimately what it was, is that they respected us for our own ideas.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, like there was discipline in the house and they expected us to, to behave in a certain way, but they respected us as people.
Yeah.
And I feel very lucky to have had that upbringing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra, for a wonderful and inspiring conversation. I hope that our listeners become inspired by our talk today, and maybe we can inspire them to respect. Let's all start respecting one another. Maybe that's the best message I can give.
Exactly. Yeah. If there's no other lesson that people get from this conversation, I hope that is something that they get. That I just think that's fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we should all respect each other.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Alexandra, for this inspiring conversation about your childhood and the remarkable way your remarkable parents raised you and your siblings. And thank you for your personal input about women empowerment and women supporting women. If you would like to learn more about Alexandra and her program, please feel free to reach out to her. You can find her on LinkedIn. Thank you all for listening. Please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hear your story. My name is Tina de Keyzer and this is the Women's Table.